All right, guys, let's get into lesson 10. Today we're going to talk about parent graphs. So once again, pause and write your stuff down. So look, we're going to update our contents, get some notes on page 31, and get some new assignments. All right, so we are going to be focusing in on this for our Zoom and parent graph today. If you end up needing more pages, like if the work we do today, for instance, takes up more than page 31, feel free to, slide over. You're just going to have to make your own adjustment on table of contents. All right, so let's go ahead and pause and get this down. You don't need to have this all spaced out like I have. This should probably just take up like the top half of your page. All right, so I want you to kind of pay attention to some things in here. There's a lot of really cool information. Today we'll be discussing absolute values. And they have this nice little equation. That should look very similar. That's just like the quadratic, except instead of it being a parentheses and a squared, the x minus h is in absolute value symbols. And the h and k is the locator point or vertex, same kind of piece. And then we also have down here for the cubic, we have a very similar looking equation again. Looks just like the quadratic, but instead of a squared, it has a cubed. So we learned about the quadratic, but really what's happening here, guys, the stuff we did with the quadratic carries over to this. So even if you were still a little hazy on some of the things we're doing there, you're really about to get the exact same lessons over and over again for a bunch of other functions. They just look a little bit different. But the A, the H, and the K all do the exact same thing as they did for the quadratic. Your HK is your locator point. That's where you start your graph. And the A is your stretch. And so one thing I want to point out down here, which I just kind of wrote this down, was this little piece about noticing a pattern. You're always going to notice that the h is grouped with the x inside the thing that names the function. So you see the x minus h in a parentheses with a cube, it's a cubic. You see the x minus h in absolute value bars, it's an absolute value. You see the x minus h in a parentheses with a squared, it's a quadratic. So you're just going to start noticing the different types of pieces here. All right. So now what we've done is I've got a few pictures here for you. So your absolute value is just like the quadratic, except it's straight lines on the sides. So when you do this thing called parent graphs, these are the most basic ones right here. It doesn't move left, right. It's not stretched. One to the right and one up. And it just follows that same pattern, a slope of 1 on both sides. And it's a negative 1 on the left side. For the cubic, what happens is when you move 1 to the right and you cube that number, you get 1 cubed is 1. When you move 2 to the right, 2 cubed is 8. So it's actually all the way up the top. So that cubic is just that little squiggly looking shape there. So as an example, to show you how this works with the quadratic, I've given you x plus 2 minus 5 with the x plus 2 and the absolute value symbols. So it tells you it's an absolute value. The number in front is positive, so it's going to open up. And so what happens is my vertex is this point -2, -5. Right there. So that's where I'm going to start the graph, which is right down here. And since my A value was 1, what that means is I go 1 to the right and 1 up. And I'm going to keep that same pattern over and over again. 1 to the right, 1 up. And then I'm just going to duplicate it on the left side, a mirror image. And that's how you draw your V shape. All right, so once again, pause to copy down what you need. And then you guys have a couple assignments. If you're still struggling a little bit on the assignments, if you're like, I don't quite get it, wait for the Zoom meeting if this is if you are a B-Day student, come into the Zoom meeting and hopefully we'll have it cleaned up for you. But these are 2 assignments. The absolute value transformation is Google Slides. The end behavior is like a little handout. You can write on it if you want to, if you got paint, or you can print it or write it on a sheet of paper. It doesn't matter. All right, guys, stay safe, take care. We'll see you in your Zoom meeting.